My name is Bree, and I didn't listen to any of the sermon.
I
already did mine.
I get a brain freeze where like when someone tells me to say something, I forget everything.
Oh, it was absolutely awesome. Amazing.
Thank you.
The message was really good today. It was about how our lineage doesn't just happen with our culture or our moms and dads and our generations behind us, but it really depends upon our relationship with Christ and how our identity is really rooted in Him first. So that's what I took from the summary today, or the sermon today.
All right, so today we had the privilege of discussing Genesis chapter 11, verses 10 through 32, to the end of the chapter. And it was really interesting. Many times believers, when we're reading through our Bible, we tend to want to skip to the passage that regards genealogy and where people came from, and so had so-and-so, and that person gave birth to this person. But we have to understand it from a Hebrew mindset that was very, very important because it outlined to the Jews who were hearing this, to the Israelites who were hearing this, where they came from. And in this particular genealogy, going through the line of Shem all the way to Abraham, or Abram at this point, it outlined to the Israelites, here's how you came eventually from Abraham, and Abraham eventually came from Shem, and here was the promise that was given to Shem. And so when we're seeing this, when we're walking through this, we also have to think about our lineage. Where do we come from? Both in a biological sense, but also in a spiritual sense. And so we talked about today about how this line, this godly lineage, not that every individual in it was necessarily godly, but this lineage, this messianic lineage that eventually would lead to Jesus Christ being born, was unbroken. And in spite of things like Cain killing Abel, in spite of things like Nimrod trying to raise up Babylon as a mighty power, in spite of the Noah flood, in spite of the sons of God came and dwelling with the daughters of men and producing some type of ungodly offspring, in spite of all that, the wickedness of the world, whatever it was, even in spite of the barrenness of Sarah's womb in this passage, in spite of all of that, God still preserved this line. And it tells us a lot about the character and the nature of God. And the reason why He did it was kind of the second point. The reason why He did it is because not only was it an unbroken line, but because He wasn't going to allow His promise to be broken either. And the promise was given in Genesis 3:15 when He talked about the seed of the woman will crush the head of the serpent eventually. And so He was going to preserve that promise. He was going to make that promise happen. Eventually that promise was fulfilled in the personal work of Jesus Christ. But we also have that promise now, and understanding that we, by nature of being part of Abraham's seed, because we share in the same faith that Abraham did. Galatians speaks about we are sons and daughters of Abraham because we share in his faith. He's a father of faith. Because we get that, we also get a part of that promise that sin and death ultimately will not rule over us. Satan will not rule over us. And so I ended the sermon by quoting Romans 8 when it speaks about neither death nor life, nor angels, nor rulers, nor any of these things, nor anything in all of creation will separate you from the love of God. And that's the promise that we have. And so when we reflect on where we've come from, both in a biological sense, what the Lord has redeemed us from, and how we've been born again now into this new lineage in a spiritual sense, and how the Lord is going to use us to glorify Him. And it's such an amazing testimony to the saving work of Jesus Christ, to the saving work of God. And so I pray that encourages you. If you have questions, feel free to send those to us. Please check us out on our website. And until next time, look forward to seeing you. God bless.